Welcome to the NFL Fade Route podcast for week 5. We're going to look back at week 4 and look at the lines, over-unders, talk about Thursday Night Football, talk about the London game, all the games on Sunday, crouton, sink or swim, scratch sniff, random fact. But before I do anything else, I want to welcome in the mayor on this Victory Friday.
Yeah, Victory Fridays are, I think they're more amazing than Victory Mondays. Nothing like having a win in 10 days off. The 49ers are off to a hot start. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, I'm ready to go for some Sunday football. I'm off this Sunday. We got a 9:30 game out in London, so there's going to be a 14-hour football fest at the mayor's household, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good week, even though there aren't a lot of great games. All right, let me give you a random fact. The city of London is the smallest city in the UK.
And isn't it the capital?
Yeah, and obviously there's a caveat. It's when you talk about the city of London, which has its own mayor, it's separate from the London area. So it's almost like the Vatican City, it's like a very small historical city within the city.
That's interesting.
And it's called City of London.
I'm sure that's not a random fact in London. That's just known as a fact.
Yeah, and they refer to it as the quarter mile because I guess it's 1/4 mile square.
Interesting.
Yeah, I did not know that, and I figured probably most people listening, unless you're in the UK, probably don't know that either. The buys this week started, so we have Chicago, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, and Atlanta on bye. So, actually, all these teams coming off of, Green Bay tied, but all these other teams coming back off of a win, so they get the bye after a win. So I think that's a pretty good deal for them. Do you have any thoughts on the bye weeks?
Um, that's kind of what my fantasy football team looks like right now is bye, bye, bye.
Yeah.
Everybody's, it seems to be week 5 hit me hard and it's not going to get any better. I've got a great fantasy football story towards the end of the podcast. Everyone stay tuned to that. But yeah, getting a win into a bye week, you can get a lot of things right. And, the teams that are at the top of the league right now, I think are there for a reason. The 3-1 football teams, the 4-0s, I think they've won for reasons, and I think they're only going to continue to get better.
Yeah, I agree. We should talk about Thursday night football. I did mention it. It's now Friday, so we had the game last night. The Rams, I think, ended at 8-point favorites. They were -8. Is that the number you saw?
I saw 7.5, but I didn't look, significantly close to game time. I'm a fan, so I wouldn't have bet on it, but this would have been 7.5. I saw is too much for a Thursday game in a division rival that isn't really necessarily an away game for said opponent. You put all those factors in, 7.5 points is a lot.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't a number I even thought about taking, but of course, taking San Francisco and the points or San Francisco money line would have been the correct choice here. What did you think about the 49ers?
It's amazing how their second string played better than their first string in all intents and purposes. They put up points, they scored, they were efficient with the ball, everything you want to see in your first string team. And it's what the backups did. And when I say backups, these were wide receivers that were starters a few seasons ago and a couple moving parts. Shanahan figures out a way to get players in plays, and he just continues to prove that time and time again. But Mac Jones played really great, and the whole offense played great. The defense did their job.
Yeah, and yeah, they're in a good place for the division. Although I think Seattle's technically still in the lead, assuming
Uh,
they win.
San Francisco is 3-0 in the division. They've beat every division opponent so far. They're 4-0 in the conference, so they have the advantage in the
Oh, I
division.
forgot. I forgot that the Niners beat Seattle week 1, right?
Yeah, in Seattle, and they beat the Rams in LA, so they're off to a about as good a start you could ask for a football team, honestly.
I'm assuming you stayed up to watch the entire game, is that correct?
Oh, absolutely, and I don't know why McVay wouldn't kick a field goal to tie the game in overtime instead of go for it on 4th and 1. Yeah, he already owned it, but he needs to choke that one down because that's just a dumb decision.
Yeah, the only calculation because I was thinking about that as I was watching it, and I thought I was pretty sure he was gonna go for it before they even decided, because even if you kick the field goal, it's not a guaranteed tie. They had no timeouts left, and San Francisco could have gone down and won in, I think there was 3 minutes left at that point. I could be wrong about that, but
Right.
um, so San Francisco could win anyway, even if you kick the field goal. If you go for it, now you can waste all the clock and, kick the field goal if you have to. I don't think it's the right decision. Obviously, it didn't work out, and we can always say that with hindsight. I thought they should have kicked the field goal along with pretty much everybody else, but I can kind of see the rationale. It's kind of like, let's win it now. If we don't, we lose. It's all or nothing kind of decision, but they probably should have come up with a better play than running Kyron Williams straight up the middle.
Yeah,
But
and they did have an extra point blocked, and their field goal kicker missed a kick in the re- in the in regular time. And
yeah.
last week the Eagles blocked that kick at the end to beat the Rams. So I mean, all those factors could have been in his head as well. But I think you should always try to take the three to tie it up when you get the chance, especially that late into the game.
I did have a three-team or three-player same game parlay come through for me though, so I was happy with the outcome. Even though I picked the Rams in the Pick'em League along with everybody else except for you and Mrs. Mayer.
Yeah, I find that incredible as well that not one person thought to pick the 49ers. There were a few people that didn't pick and forgot maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't have, but I will take the one game advantage going into the 9:30 game on Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's good to have. My hot take on this though is, why have OT? I mean, I think they should put pressure on these teams to either tie or win in regulation. I don't like the overtime if it can still end in a tie, and I also obviously don't want them to play forever, but I would just save OT for the playoffs. What do you think about that?
I think it's going to be a forever work in progress, and at the end of the day, if you lose in overtime, it stinks. And when you lose in overtime due to a rule in the playoffs, it stinks even more. So I think someone's always going to be disappointed. And, I don't think there's any set of rules that's ever going to be able to fix that.
Yeah, I just don't like the extra minutes, and then you can still end up with a tie anyway. And you're having to make the same decisions in overtime that you would make. Let's say, Sean McVay has that in regulation. He has to make the decision to kick the field goal or go for it. He's kicking the field goal, I guess, to go into overtime in that situation. But if you take the overtime away, he's just in the same situation he was in overtime. So I don't know. I just think that the overtime might not be something we need.
Yeah, maybe they'll be there one day.
All right, so we talked about that a Thursday night football game. Congratulations to the Niners, and we do have a London game. Minnesota got to stay over the UK playing the Dublin game last weekend. Now they're going to London to play the Cleveland Browns, who are starting Dylan Gabriel, who is the second string quarterback there. So Flacco got benched. It seems like a weird time to start your rookie quarterback, but I guess that was a better. I mean, there's not going to be a better time.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that other backup quarterback in Cleveland that got drafted this year said he didn't want to be drafted by Baltimore because he wanted to have a chance to play. And here he is being the backup still, and he could be playing in Baltimore this week if he didn't want to run his mouth in the draft and get back to things like that. Um, Kind of crazy. I like Minnesota in this matchup. I don't think that defense in Cleveland is going to be enough paired with a rookie starting quarterback. And the Cleveland Browns always seem to be a dumpster fire, and until proven otherwise, I'm going to be saying that about them.
Yeah, and so Minnesota does have the advantage, of course, of staying over there, not having to travel and adjust to the time. They had a lot more time to adjust.
Well, how far is the flight from Dublin to Ireland, or from Dublin to London?
I didn't look that up, but I'm assuming it's almost like a puddle jump because it's not a big
Yeah,
area.
probably couldn't be much worse from Minnesota to Cleveland for a plane ride, but the
Yeah,
trip from Cincinnati to London or Cleveland to London is a bit of a rough one.
yeah, and also I mean, this is what I was saying is like Minnesota has adjusted to that time, by now. I would think they've been there over 2 weeks. So they have that advantage at least a little bit, and then they're going up against a rookie quarterback, which in a bad offense. So I was tempted to take the under even though it's 36, but I did not ultimately. But I don't see a lot of points. Obviously, Vegas doesn't see a lot of points in this game either. Cleveland +4. Technically, it's a home game for Cleveland, but obviously that doesn't really matter. Just means they get one less actual home game. I like Minnesota here too, but I'm staying away from it.
Yeah, I'm not touching this one at all. It's going to be nice to have football on a Sunday morning. I guess there's promises of French toast, so we'll be eating some French toast while watching the game in London.
All right. French toast during London game. All right, writing that down. All right. So the 1 o'clock window back here in the States, Houston is at Baltimore. I saw the last line I saw, Baltimore was a home dog, plus 1.5. The over under was 40.5 points. Obviously, Baltimore down a bunch of players, but in particular, Lamar Jackson being out this week. Houston hasn't looked good this year at all, but neither has Baltimore. So I think at the beginning of the season, everybody would have said, wow, what a great game in week 5, Houston at Baltimore. Now it's not. It's hardly worth watching, but do you have any thoughts on this game?
Here's a fascinating stat. The Houston has only given up 12.8 points a game. That's first in the league, and they are 1-3. And the Ravens have given up 33.3 points a game, worst in the league. So I can see why at this point the Houston is favored in Baltimore. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I think Baltimore's got enough key pieces that they can hold down a decent team and get a win. Maybe Derrick Henry can carry them to a win this week. We'll see. But that Houston defense is really good. If they can ever put some offense together and start winning games, they'll be a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I saw a stat this week that so Derrick Henry obviously not having a great season except for week 1. He had a brilliant game there, but been bad ever since then. He actually has fewer yards per carry since game 1 than either of the running backs on the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. So they both have more yards per carry than Derrick Henry if you take
Well,
week. Yeah. And those Chief running backs have not been good, so that's the other thing about that. All right, Las Vegas is at Indy. Indy is a 6.5 point favorite at home. The over/under is 48. Indy kind of blew the game last week. I don't think they're a better team, but they kind of snatched defeat from the jaws of victory there. And Las Vegas might just be a terrible team. I don't know if it's time to just stop watching the Raiders, even if you're a Raiders fan. What do you think about the Las Vegas Raiders at Indianapolis Colts?
yeah, this one kind of has blowout written all over it. It's not reality that team's going to be able to win every football game they play. And this past week was pretty evident. There were a lot of head scratcher games. Even if you're looking in the pool, somebody won with 10 right out of
Mhm.
50 people, where the average has been 14. So it was an off week. It was a reset week, if you will. But either way, the Raiders are that bad of a football team, and the Colts are pretty good so far. I would say they're in one of the top tiers of the league right now, and they're going to win this game. And 48 is probably a lot, but 7.5, 7, 6.5, whatever that might be, that number looks pretty good too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be afraid. I didn't take that one, but I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of that. Denver's at Philly. Philly 3.5 point favorites at home. The over/under is 43.5. I think Denver's been a disappointing team. I mean, I had them. I think I had them winning the division, so I'm particularly disappointed in that pick. But Philadelphia is also kind of disappointing from the aspect of winning all these games, but not winning convincingly, let's say. Do you have any thoughts on Denver at Philly?
Well, Denver's defense has come to play so far this season, but Philly is continuing their train of success from last season all the way back into the week 13, 14 when they really turned it on. They've only lost one game, and I think their last 20. So they're continuing to tick, and they're going to just continue to be a cohesive team. Denver, they got a chance in this game, but their defense is going to have to completely shut down Philly completely and take them out of the game. And hopefully, Bo Nix doesn't throw too many interceptions. Already 4 on the season, 7 touchdowns. So he's done his part, but he needs to be a little bit better and get that win for Denver.
I'd be scared to take this just because I think Philly's going to win, but 3.5, that hook is pretty bad. A 3 point win by Philadelphia seems more likely than
Yes.
anything else. All right, let's look at Dallas at the Jets. Dallas coming off that crazy tie in overtime with the Packers. The Jets look like the Jets again. I don't know. It's hard for me to like the Jets seem like they're the same team no matter who's the quarterback and who the players are and who the coach is. It's very strange. But the Jets are home dogs, 2.5. Dallas is favored, and the over/under is 47.5. Any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, that tie was wild, and that was a scorenomic alert, just in case anyone hasn't been following along. 40-40 was a unique score, so the first time it's ever happened in the NFL. Surprisingly, there's quite a few ties in the scorenomic chart that have already been fulfilled. If we'll keep you up to date on those as they go. Uh, However, the Jets, they just like you said, they are the Jets. They're just continually mediocrity of the NFL and can't put together a winning season no matter what happens. But I would say this could be an upset alert game. Maybe this is another reset week. They are a team of professionals. Maybe they can get this done against the Dallas team, but Dallas has scored a lot of points. I think the Jets are going to get this one done.
Uh, So the last time the Jets were in the playoffs, and forgive me if I'm wrong about this, but that was with Mark Sanchez, franchise Sanchez, and like 13 or 14 years ago. Is that correct?
Uh, Didn't they sneak in like one wild card 4 or 5 years ago? I don't remember. Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, again, I could be wrong about that, but the last 15 or so years of the Jets have been very, very forgettable. Let's move on. Miami is at Carolina. Carolina is a home dog by 1. The over/under is 44.
And it was, in fact, the Mark Sanchez season.
Oh, okay. Good. Thanks for fact checking that so we don't have to edit that out and make me look stupid. Um, Miami's at Carolina. Carolina home dog by 1. At least that's where I saw it. The over/under is 44. This I don't think a lot of people are going to watch this game, but I'm not going to be too offensive about it. Is this one of the games that you're going to be checking in on?
Yeah, I know there's at least 3 people that are going to be watching the game. So there will be a few viewers from the Sarasota County, Florida, USA,
Sure.
watching. It's a fascinating game. To the victor goes the spoil, I guess. Once you go to 1-4, you might as well start thinking about next season and maybe trading to get some assets and future draft picks for anything that you may be able to get for some of your talent that's on your team that you're going to be doing them a favor by getting them away from the dumpster fire you call yourself. I don't know. I don't want to say I'm not picking Miami, but Carolina's at home and both these teams aren't great. So usually that goes favor to the home team.
And that may have been last week, the last Tyreek Hill game with the Dolphins for sure.
Yeah, just a bad injury. He's at this pace, you're looking at early 2026 season, week 3 or 4, before he's even going to be ready to go. And then having to learn a whole new offense if you're into a new team. You can scheme a couple simple pass concept plays, but to be able to fit in and get with that team, it's going to take a while.
And I know everybody's pointed this out, but speed was his main strength. I mean, he's a good receiver otherwise, but that speed is probably not ever coming back after this injury. So, he'll be 32, I think, when he comes back. So that's usually the end of a wide receiver's career, especially if it's built on speed. All right, so let's move on to the last game in the 1 o'clock window. The Giants are at New Orleans. New Orleans, the last I saw it was a 1.5 point favorite at home. The over under is 42. The Giants looked pretty good last week with the rookie. New Orleans has looked kind of bad all season. So maybe Vegas knows something we don't, but they've got New Orleans favored in this one. What do you think?
Well, I mean, a team that's 1-3 with a rookie quarterback coming south, playing away. That's yeah, 1.5 makes sense. It's not 3.5 because the Saints haven't won a game. I look for the Saints also to get their first victory of the season along with the Jets, so we won't have any more teams without a win. Both teams are going to get it done this week, and I see the Saints are going to win.
Yeah, and the Giants, another team that lost a wide receiver this week, Malik Neighbors, done for the season. So that could be a factor in this game as well because it won't have that weapon. The 4 o'clock window starts with Tampa Bay at Seattle. Seattle is favored by 3.5. The over-under is 44.5. That Tampa Bay team riddled with injuries, but they seem to be in it every week. So what do you think about this game? I know you love to pick Seattle. I mean, against Seattle. But what do you think about the game in general?
Seattle at home, I forget what the record was, but they haven't been great at home recently in recent seasons. I think they've got almost a losing record at home, is what I want to say. But Tampa Bay has struggled going west often. Like you said, there's a lot of injuries. It is a 4 o'clock game, so it's a little later in the day. I don't know if who's going to win this football game, but I think it's going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes. I think Baker Mayfield has the advantage on the QB game, and I think Bucky Irving may not be able to play, but they've got enough role players in that offense that they should be able to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Evans out for the year, and if Bucky Irving doesn't play, of course, that's another blow to the offense. I'm not touching this game, but I would actually lean Seattle. But I do agree with you that Mayfield is the better quarterback in this game. Tennessee is at Arizona. Arizona favored by 7.5. It just seems very high for this Arizona team. The over under is 42. I know Tennessee is terrible. They might be the worst team in the league. But Arizona giving 7.5 is quite interesting. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I guess I misspoke earlier. I forgot Tennessee hadn't won a game yet either. And according to Vegas, they're not winning this one. They are really bad, and they need some confidence to build on the season. Cam Ward has not matured as a quarterback yet. He's not even putting up decent numbers on offense. They're 153 yards in passing, which is second worst in the league, and only scoring 12 points a game on offense. That's not going to get it done. In fact, that's the worst in the league. So, yeah, I see the Arizona defense holding Tennessee to maybe single digits, and Arizona being able to muster up 1 or 2 touchdowns and get to 17 or 20 points and have a 20-7 victory or something like that.
All right. I mean, I can't see Arizona covering 7.5. We talk about this, well, not a lot, but a few times we've talked about this, how Arizona will look like they're blowing somebody out or something, and then they just let the team creep back in. So I'm not saying Tennessee is the pick here, but I wouldn't take Arizona personally. Washington is at the Chargers. The Chargers now down their offensive tackles, which is really a strength of that team. As predicted, they kind of had that Cleveland Green Bay type of energy. That's what I was predicting to watch out for. The Giants took down the Chargers last week, and in a very surprising result. But here again, the Chargers at home favored by 2.5. The over/under is 48. The Washington team may be getting Jaden Daniels back soon, but it doesn't look like it's this week. So still Marcus Mariota with that one. You have any thoughts on this game?
Jim Harbaugh has somehow done it again with his football team. The Chargers have scored less offensive points than the Texans and given up more defensive points than the Texans, and they are 3-1, and the Texans are 1-3. If that doesn't define the NFL, I don't know what does. You got to win the game you're playing. It doesn't matter what you do; you've got to win. They've won football games. They're going to win this one at home. I know LA is a tough home crowd stadium for the Rams or the Chargers, but I don't think Washington is going to be able to perform like you said. They're down some offensive linemen, and I think we're going to start to see a slightly different Washington team. And Jim Harbaugh is going to have this team better every week they play.
All right. The last game in the 4 p.m. window, Detroit is at Cincinnati. Cincinnati 10-point home dogs. The over/under is 49.5. I don't see Cincinnati putting up very many points, but that's a lot that Detroit is giving. So I looked at it. I looked back at it. I don't know if you remember this, but the biggest line in recent memory that I could find was the Manning Broncos in, I think, 2013. I think they were plus 28 against the Jaguars, which
Wow.
they did not cover, but that's an insane line. But this is the biggest of the week. Do you have any interest in this game?
Yeah, as I was lived in Michigan, born in Michigan, so I guess you would say I'm a closet Lions fan. I would root for them.
Yeah.
I think it's good to see what they've done, the big turnaround they've had with Dan Campbell. 10.5 points line makes sense when you look at it. I mean, they beat the Bears by 30, they beat the Browns by 24, and they beat the Ravens by 8. And the Ravens are by far a better football team than the other two, and they're not great. But in their losses, I'm sorry, in their one loss this season, they didn't come out right, and they they'll get there.
Yeah, Detroit money line is fine, but that's too many points. The Sunday night football game, New England at Buffalo, division rivalry. Buffalo looking really good this year. New England's definitely been up and down. Buffalo's favored by 7.5. The over/under is 49. Buffalo looks like they're definitely the best team in the league. No reason to think New England can win this game, but 7.5 still pretty good amount to be getting for New England. So, what do you think?
Buffalo Bills will be wearing their rivalry jersey, the cold front, I guess it is, the all whites with some
Yeah.
blue numbering and lettering. I think a home game in December, these would be more appropriate. Maybe they don't have one. I'm not sure. These rivalry jerseys look pretty cool. They're going to be on 8 teams a season for the next 4 years. But a jersey doesn't help you play football better, and it certainly isn't going to make them play better. But New England, they're an I guess 8.5 point dog. Is that what we said?
I saw it at 7.5, but it may have moved because
Yeah, I
of.
see 8.5 right now, but I'm on a different site. But I believe you at 7.5. I think Buffalo is going to win big, and they're going to flex their muscles to their division foe.
Yeah, I mean yeah, I mean New England's not as bad of a team as I thought a couple weeks ago. I think they've got some hope of turning their whole franchise back around, but I don't think this year is the year, and I wouldn't certainly take anybody against Buffalo in Buffalo at this point in the season. The Monday Night Football game, Kansas City at Jacksonville. Jacksonville a home dog, 3.5. The over/under is 46. What do you think about this KC team giving points in Jacksonville?
That's fascinating because Jacksonville's defense has been the standout of their team this year. Last week when they played San Francisco in their only loss of the season, their team, you could tell their strip sacks and their technique in getting the ball out of the offense's hands is top notch. And they forced two interceptions and two forced fumbles. Uh, I giving up points at or getting points at home. This looks like it would be a good possibility to maybe make a couple of bucks if you wanted to do such a thing. I think Vegas is dead wrong on this one.
Yeah, it's strange. It's like, but you know what? KC's still up there in the Super Bowl odds. We're gonna talk about the Super Bowl odds in a few minutes, but for some reason they're in the top five still. For I don't know whether that's just legacy and they can get people to actually bet the Chiefs even when they're not looking great. I don't know what that is, but do you think the Chiefs should be in the top five in terms of odds for the Super Bowl to win the Super Bowl?
No, I don't. I have a list of five, and they're not on it.
Yeah, I've got a top four right now, and yeah, I don't have the Chiefs in there. All right, so that's the games this week. Before we get to everything else, I wanted to give out the first quarter grades. I had a total of 18 teams, four tiers. You can think of tier one as A, tier two as B, etc. So that's how I was grading this for the first quarter of the season. Um, so if you have, I don't know if you have the same number of tiers or grades, but um, obviously picking 18 teams, these teams are not all going to make the playoffs. But these are the teams that technically I feel like have some kind of chance at it. So I actually had the Rams in tier one. They uh they kind of blew that game. I mean, hats off to San Francisco. They played well, but the Rams did blow that game. And I think with the experience they have on that team, I think they're still in the top tier to me. And then I have Detroit, Buffalo, and Philly, of course, in that first tier.
Yeah, that So I did not quite make such the tier list. I kind of wrote down who I think the best five were, and
Yeah.
the worst five are definitely the ones that haven't won yet, and we know who they are. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. The Rams, they're gonna, Matt Stafford's gonna keep them in football games. He is a phenomenal quarterback, and they are lucky to have him. And they are definitely in that top tier with those other teams.
Yeah. So you said you had five teams in the top?
Well, for I would say San Francisco's right near that top tier, but at the same time, there's some vulnerabilities on that team that can be exposed pretty quickly if in a playoff game scenario, you don't, they're vulnerable.
Yeah, I almost switched out San Francisco for the Rams, so I'm kind of with you on that. San Francisco's been impressive with all the missing pieces, especially the backup quarterback. Mac Jones hasn't, exactly been stellar his whole career. So, they've done a good job, I think, all things considered. And if they can do this well with all those starters missing, I think they've got a real shot at it. So I agree with you. Maybe San Francisco should be moved up. I had them in the 3rd tier, but we'll get to that in a second. My 2nd tier, the B teams, I have Tampa Bay, Seattle, Green Bay, Indy, and the Chargers. Green Bay looked really good and then suffered a loss to the Browns and then the tie with Dallas. That's why I couldn't put them in the top. Maybe they're still a Super Bowl contender, but for me, I think they needed to be a little more impressive offensively and defensively the last couple weeks. So they slid down to the 2nd tier for me. Tampa Bay just has something, especially Baker Mayfield. I can see them making the playoffs. Not the greatest chance at Super Bowl, but Seattle, Indy, surprise teams, I think, a little bit this year. Although I wouldn't give them a great chance to get all the way to the Super Bowl and win it. And then the Chargers as well. I think if they can get their offensive lineman back, particularly Joe Alt, if he can come back. Rashawn Slater's out for the year, but If they can get some things going again, they will be fine, and I think they're a playoff team, so they really have a chance to make the Super Bowl. Do you have any thoughts on that? Tampa Bay, Seattle, Green Bay, Indy, and the Chargers?
Yeah, I think Green Bay and Seattle, I wouldn't put them in a tier two if I were making tiers. I think they're probably closer to tier three. And the Chargers definitely a tier two team. They can step up and get that done. Good chance. I think they have the best chance of that of those teams you mentioned to get to the Super Bowl. The other ones, they're going to have to play solid football when they get in the playoffs, and it's really about who's going to be healthy in the playoffs, not necessarily about who is the best team at the moment.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we talk about a lot. It's the healthiest team at the end of the day. That's what makes or breaks a team getting to the Super Bowl. And tier three, I had Kansas City. I had San Francisco, but I'll move them up based on last night. I think they're like we talked about earlier. They're above the tier three teams. So I have KC, San Francisco, Baltimore, Washington, and Pittsburgh. I'm going to narrow that down to KC, Baltimore, Washington, Pittsburgh. Do you have any thoughts on those teams and their chances?
I don't think Kansas City should be in tier three. I think we're seeing the not dismantling of the dynasty, but the realization that they need to get more talent around them. And they have lost a few pieces of talent over the years. And I wouldn't put them up there. I think Pittsburgh is that division at this point is, theirs for the taking. And I agree with you. They're going to have that chance. But other than that, I would say that's a pretty good list.
Yeah, so this is the third tier. So these are teams that I don't think are likely. They're playoff teams. So I mean, I think these are going to be playoff teams. So I'm not ruling them out if you can get into the playoffs. They're not in the top 10 for me, but they are I think they've got a small chance to get there. And then tier 4 is like long shots, but I had to make a tier 4. These are not teams that I expect anything out of in the playoffs if they make it, but technically I think they've got a long shot chance. I have Jacksonville, Denver, Dallas, and Atlanta.
Jacksonville, Dallas.
Denver and Atlanta.
Yeah, I think Denver out of all those teams has the best outside chance because of the defense they have and represent.
Yeah, I mean these are real long shots, and I think you could get good value on them if you thought any of those teams were going to win the Super Bowl. But you're right. I mean Denver might be slightly over those other teams, but Atlanta's too inconsistent. Dallas is just terribly defensively, and Jacksonville still needs another year, I think, to be a contender. But those are my tiers. Anybody that didn't make the tier, I give absolutely no shot at winning the Super Bowl. So if they're not in those 18 teams that I just mentioned, I don't think they can win.
So are you
But,
saying you're going to scratch every one of those other teams from your scratch and sniff?
well, I have already scratched most of them.
Me
So,
too. Me
yeah,
too.
yeah. Um, so anyway, but I was looking at the Super Bowl odds and mentioned earlier KC, I think still in the top 5, at least when I looked at it. Um, I was looking at the top when you look at, to make the finalists, the two teams that make the Super Bowl, um, the top like 5 or 6 are all Buffalo versus somebody else, which makes sense. Buffalo has the best odds to win the Super Bowl. But before last night, I was pretty high on the Rams, and I still think they're a good team. You can get Bills Rams at 20-1 right now. You might even be able to get it better since last night. I don't know. But if you want to jump out on something like a Super Bowl matchup, those are actually pretty fun to look at. But, if you think the Bills aren't going to make it, you can get really good odds. But 20-1 for Bills Rams. The Rams to win are 13-1, and the Bills to win are 4-1. So you could get value either way that with those if you actually really believe in the Bills. You can still get value on the Bills at 4-1. You have any thoughts on the Super Bowl at this point, quarter through the season?
I would not bet on the Rams to win the Super Bowl or make the Super Bowl. It makes sense that Buffalo is the top or the bet has the best odds to win the Super Bowl because they've so far looked like one of the most complete teams there is. And it's only because the rest of the AFC is probably not going to really be a competitor with them, where there's a few more competitive teams in the NFC. And Philadelphia is probably the favorite in the NFC, I would still imagine. And,
Yeah.
finding a combination of Philly and Buffalo, you'd have to bet a lot of money to win a little, or, pick an underdog. They are fascinating to look at, and I have conjured up a couple myself, but I haven't pulled the trigger on them.
Yeah, and this is the time when we get a little bit closer halfway through the season, you're not going to get as good of odds, but I haven't looked at all of them. I just was curious to see what ones I kind of liked right now. Let's move on to croutons. So we start off with 1,000, and we see who can have the most croutons by the end. No limit on how many you can and how many games you can bet. So, but so far I've been very, very conservative. Last week I just took two. I took Seattle -2. They were +1 at one point, but it did move to -2. It didn't matter. They got the win and they covered, and so I've got 50 croutons from that. The other pick I had was Green Bay -7. I thought that one was pretty good luck, but that was I guess a lot of points, and obviously the scoregami game in overtime, so I missed that one. I'm still at 1,100, just 100 up this season. And you had a different week. What was your week like?
Yeah, I had two spicy meatball picks this week, and both of them failed. I had Washington -3.5, and that was so close, but not yet. And then I had Detroit written down, so I instantly thought I just took them to win, forgetting that I took the over because they won by 30 something or 20 something. So, and then I had to correct it after you informed me I was not right. They missed the over by half a point, so that fish
Yeah.
hook got me. Vegas got their victory with that half a point. Good for
Mhm.
them. The only one I did get right was Minnesota versus Pittsburgh, getting 3 points in Dublin, and Pittsburgh was able to pull that victory out. And so there we go. This week I've got three picks. I started with two, but while talking through the podcast, I determined there was one that I was really missing out on, and I'm going to inform you as soon as you're ready.
Yeah, I have two, so why don't you go first?
So my first one, I'm looking at the Washington and the or I'm sorry, the Chargers. The over under is set at 47. I think that's going to be a very high scoring game. I'm going to go over 47 for 50 croutons.
All right. I also like that game, but I'm gonna take a side. I think the Chargers can cover 2.5 against Washington. At home, I know that it's not a huge advantage at home, but the Chargers, after getting beat by the Giants, I think they're gonna regroup and they'll have enough to beat this Washington team by 3. So I've got that for 53 times.
Yeah, this Chargers team has a trance on me. I always seem to bet them. I didn't see that 2.5, or I probably would have jumped on that bet as well. I don't know how I missed it. But my second bet, I see Jacksonville getting 3 points at three. What is it? 3.5 at home or three at home?
3.5 is what I saw.
Yeah, so Jacksonville getting 3.5 at home. That defense is going to eat again. I think they're going to keep Patrick Mahomes on his heels, and all purposes intended, I think they're going to get the win, let alone getting 3.5 points. And I'm going to bet 50 on that one.
Yeah, I like that one. I don't know why KC is favored that by that much. But anyway, Vegas might know something we don't, as usual. All right, my other pick is Houston at Baltimore. I'm taking the under 40.5. I just don't see how these teams, especially with Baltimore and the backup quarterback, how do they get to 40? I know that's a low number already, but I don't see how either of these teams get to 20. So I've got the under 40.5 for 50 croutons.
You say that, and then something happens, and it becomes a shootout, and next thing you know, how'd that quarterback throw for 400 yards? Oh well,
Yeah.
here we go. Good luck to you on that one. The one that I talked myself into while we're going over this podcast was Indy. What is it? Indy -7 versus Las Vegas, or is it 7.5?
It's 6.5.
Oh, even better. Okay, so yeah, I'll take Indy -6.5 for Las Vegas, and I'm gonna bet 100 on that one because I need to get my money back.
Yeah, makes sense. Indy's definitely 7 points better than Vegas, and they're at home. Should be an advantage. I know the Houston and Baltimore under is kind of a square bet. It's like these offenses aren't going to be good. They haven't been good at all, and they are missing Lamar Jackson's not going to be in this game. But I just still don't see how these teams get to 20 each or better. Anyway, those are our picks for croutons this week. We'll see how that all plays out in that competition. We also have something called Sink or Swim, where we get to pick one team, kind of like a survivor pool, but we don't get eliminated. So we get to pick one team each week, and we get the points corresponding to that week. So, for example, I had Pittsburgh in week 1. I had Arizona in week 3. Atlanta did not pull it off in week 3. Sorry, Arizona week 2, and then Atlanta week 3. Then I had Chicago week 4. They did win it just by a point, but it still counts. And this week I'm going to take Dallas.
Dallas. Wow. Okay, that's a pick for you.
Yeah.
I pick Indy this week. I guess it kind of makes sense now that I'm betting on them as well. Week 1, 2, and 3, I had Washington, Detroit, Buffalo. Struck gold with all three of those picks, and last week the Chargers loss got me. My undefeated chance at an undefeatedness is over, and I can't even beat my old record of 15 correct picks in a row. So here we go with Indy this week to get back to the positive side of things.
Yeah, so this is going to be a tight race, I think, because we have two different strategies, and so far they're kind of working out the same way. So we'll see as the season goes on. Um, so scratch and sniff is kind of almost the opposite of that. We're looking at who we can scratch off each week to not sniff the playoffs. I thought we capped it at 3, but I'm okay with doing 4. The one thing I wanted to prevent was if we had an unlimited cap on these teams, we'd just both pick all 32 teams in week 1, and you know, that would be a tie. Massive amount of points because you don't get penalized if you get one wrong. You only get the points if you get it right. So, did you want to keep it? Do you want to do 4 or do you want to cap it at 3? Because I can go either way.
I don't know, and I think we're going to have to rework this game for next season, but we might as well do 4 at this point because didn't you do 4 last week or this week or?
I did 3, and then I saw you did 4 this week, so I picked another team. But like I said,
Oh,
I
okay,
can.
yeah. Well, forgive me. We can do 3 if you want me to. I can take one off, but I
Yeah, I
think
think.
this game has outpaced its purpose.
Yeah, I mean it's not as fun as it was. So yeah, I agree. I think we say this every year that we should kind of rework it, and then we can't really come to an agreement on what would be best. But we'll figure something out. But I think we've both eliminated about the same number of teams at this point. I'm good with just keeping 4 as the limit. We don't have a lot left that we can pick because we are limited to 18. So I think I'm at 14 teams now, something like that, 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, we only have a couple more weeks. I'm taking Las Vegas, the Jets, the Texans, and the Vikings off the list of teams that are going to make the playoffs this week.
Wow, the Vikings, that's a surprising pick. I haven't given up hope on them yet. Cincinnati, Baltimore, Las Vegas, and Arizona. I think Baltimore is my big shocker there, but I just don't see that. There's a lot of teams already that have big records in the AFC, and it's going to be hard for them to fetch down a wild card spot. Now, missing Lamar this week, I see him being 1-4, so I'm preemptively striking against them. And Cincinnati without Burrow is I think Burrow deserves to be the MVP this season because how bad his team is without him. And Las Vegas didn't have a chance. And like you said a few weeks ago, Arizona is a team of pretenders. They have not played quality football against a good team yet, and until proven otherwise, that's where they're going to be. So yeah, I think I'm up to as many teams as you are now for scratching purposes, and the back half of the season is going to be for those mediocre teams to get those last couple of spots.
Yeah, I mean, we both might be out of scratch teams by week 7, so we'll see how it goes. So scratch and sniff might not be a relevant game the entire time, but just as teams get like eliminated, we can kind of put the points together at that point. That's all I have this week. Do you have anything that we haven't covered?
No, I do want to tell. I mean, I know every once in a while no one cares about anyone else's fantasy football
Oh,
team,
yeah,
but we
that's
have
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
small updates. And in my double quarterback league a few weeks ago, when Purdy went down, I was able to secure Mac Jones on my football team as a second quarterback, and then I lost Joe Burrow, so I ended up having to really get desperate. That's when I picked up Mac Jones. And I played Mac Jones one week and he didn't have a great week, but the 49ers won. And then Purdy became available again, so I dropped Mac Jones. And Purdy didn't play this week, and Mac Jones wasn't on my football team, and he shot the lights out last night for fantasy purposes. And I am currently in last place in that league and cannot get out of my own way no matter what happens.
I should say this is a super flex league where you play two quarterbacks, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really important when you lose both your quarterbacks to try to scramble and find something. But yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I had Geno Smith as a starting quarterback last week because I had no other choice.
Wow. Yeah, you're in a
Imagine,
desperate.
imagine the Las Vegas Raiders thinking that as an organization.
Yeah, that's they have it worse than you technically. But yeah, I mean, there's still a chance you could turn it around. I mean, Brock Purdy's gonna be back, right? At some point.
Yeah, they say he may be ready for next week. We'll see. Maybe there's no rush to get back if Mac is doing that, but I think they're going to be in a good spot one way or the other. They're paying him a lot of money, so he's probably going to start unless I don't see why he wouldn't start the next game when he's healthy. If anything, they've got good trade bait now for Mac Jones, and maybe they can get something else on their team to help them in a couple holes they have.
And did you drop Burrow? Have we determined he's out for the season with the turf toe?
I had an injury reserve spot, but I had an injured player that could possibly play in next week, so I ended up ditching Burrow. They said he's not going to be available till about week 12 or 13 at this point. And my thinking is, at 12 or 13, they're probably out of the playoffs and they're not going to bring him back for stats for the last few
Right.
weeks of the season. So, maybe if he's going to play, maybe I'll try to get him back if I'm in a playoff hunt. If I can beat people to the punch, we'll see. But at the time, I needed a roster spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have to concern ourselves with whether Joe Burrow's coming back. I'm pretty sure, like you said, there's no reason to bring him back when they're not going to make the playoffs anyway. So I think then that is it. I'd like to thank the mayor for joining me, and I'd like to thank you for listening. We will see you next week, week 6, but it's bye for now.